So it's 9:30 tonight, and I started this whole process today at about 2:30 or so. So anyway, it's been a long day, but it's been fun. I just put my videos together, and I decided instead of letting you watch me cook for like 4 or 5 hours, I'd just make kind of a highlight reel, so you could see specifically the big things that happened. And the different websites that I used, or I just wanted to list them off. La Cuisine Française. So you can see it there. That's the French cookbook that I used. That's from like the 1670s, and that's where I got my artichoke recipe. The French apple tart was from alexandracooks.com. The main dish with chicken, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but it's coq au vin, Coqauvin. I got that off of vikalinka.com, found it on Pinterest. And let's see, I believe that's everything. The salad I just kind of threw together. It had almonds, pear chunks, and then I found a really delicious pear gorgonzola vinaigrette with just mixed salad. I believe that's everything. Yep, and then I just had a wheel of Gouda cheese with a loaf of bread for my second to last course, and you'll see that in the video that's following this one. I believe that is it. Hello, it's Maddie. It's 3 o'clock. I just started on my French tart. You can kind of sort of see here. I combined, I'm starting on the apple tart. I combined flour, salt, sugar, and then some cubed unsalted butter, and that's going to start my crust. I just finished the start for my tart crust. You can see it there. It's looking just like it says it's supposed to. I'm on the Alexandra Cooks website, is what I'm using to make this, and now I'm just going to transfer it to my rolling surface and make the round disc. I just finished rolling up my pie, or my tart crust. It's supposed to be roughly 13 inches in diameter, and that looks just about good to me. I'm going to let it chill in the fridge for an hour and then get started on my other dishes for the evening. Alrighty, so I just finished browning my chicken for the main dish, which is coq au vin, and I chopped up my carrots. That's kind of work in progress. I still have some onions to chop up for that. And then I just took my pie crust out of the oven, and I'm going to pause on my main dish with the chicken and finish up the apple tart and then put it into the oven because that's going to take a while to do. That's basically where I am right now. So I just put the tart crust into my dish here and then lined it with butter. You can see, and now I'm cutting up apples into really thin slices and lining them up like this. So just a little check-in. Alright, my onions and carrots are cooking right now. I have the chicken I cooked earlier off to the side. I'm going to add that in a second. I have my whiskey ready to go. I'm going to use that, and then I have some chicken stock and and then my wine over here. I'll be using half a bottle of this red wine. Going to make a sauce that's all going to go in once right here what I have is all done cooking. So I just added to my onions and carrots the chicken, as you can see, my red wine, the whiskey, the chicken broth. That's about it. And there is some garlic in there that I chopped up. And right now I'm just waiting for that to come to a boil. And once that happens, I will put it into the oven for 40 minutes. Then take it out for a second, throw in some mushrooms, and then put it back in for about 15 more minutes. And then it's going to be ready. This is my coq au vin. Okay, I just let it come to a boil. I already wrapped it, but you can kind of see the chicken, and I put the stock in there and everything, and came to a boil, and now I'm going to put it in the oven. I just put the main dish in the oven, and the apple tart is at another house cooking in the oven. Next up, I will make my artichokes, which is my hors d'oeuvre, and the recipe says, this is the one I got out of the 1673 cookbook, and although it might not have been available to everyday middle class chefs, the recipe or the cookbook usually meant to reflect the typical cuisine that people would eat in those times, so this is probably a dish that people did eat whether or not they had those cookbooks available to them. Okay, so I have the artichoke cut up, and I use the French recipe that I found online, and it's going to boil in a combination of water and my leftover chicken broth from the main course. And this will be done in a little bit. I have about 23 minutes left on that. And to accompany the artichokes, I found, along with that same recipe, a sauce for them, and it has fresh butter, 1 drop of vinegar, nutmeg, and the yolk of an egg to thicken the sauce, and that's what it is right there. So that should taste interesting. And then my artichoke should be done pretty soon. And that is our very first course, and then after that I have a pear salad followed by the coq au vin, then a cheese wheel with some bread, and then an apple tart to finish off the meal. And after the artichoke, I have the salad I prepared here. I'm just going to put in the fridge in a second. It has pear gorgonzola vinaigrette, almonds, and some chunks of pear in there actually, just because the French really like to add fresh fruit to their salads, and so I thought I would try my own little take on that by adding pear. Okay, and as I mentioned before, this is my first course. It's just the artichoke, the recipe I found online from the 1673 cookbook. This is the dipping sauce that was also included in the recipe, and then there's just my discard bowl for the leftovers. Okay, I just pulled my main dish out of the oven and put in a little bit of flour and butter to thicken it, as the recipe called for, and then threw in these mushrooms just like it asked me to, and then I'm going to put that back in the oven for about 15 minutes. Okay, I just finished serving them the artichoke. They're just finishing up with that. Next up is the pear and walnut salad, and my main dish has about 15 more minutes in the oven. Okay, and this is the main entree. They finished the artichoke and the pear salad, so you can see everything. It smells amazing. And then after this, we will have the bread and cheese wheel followed by the apple tart to finish everything off. And for our second to last course, I have our loaf of bread just about finished up and a cheese wheel. And we're finishing up, and then we will end the evening with the apple tart. And here we are at the end. Thank you for watching. It was really fun to make that dinner, and my family loved it, and I thought it was actually really delicious. I used, let's see, for all of my ingredients, I meant to list this earlier. For the main dish with chicken, I actually used bacon grease just because I thought it would give it some flavor. And I used that when I cooked the chicken. Cut the chicken up in big chunks. I seared it, but kept the insides uncooked. And then sauteed onions with carrots and garlic, and then threw in the whiskey and the red wine and the chicken stock and let that come to a boil, and then put it into the oven, and then took it out after about 40 minutes, and then threw in some flour and butter and then some mushrooms, and then left it uncovered for the last like 15 minutes. After that, because that's really the only thing that had a bunch of steps to it aside from the tart. And the tart I thought I described pretty well, but basically I just got the crust all taken care of. I mixed it all together and I showed you all those steps, and then I let it chill in the fridge for an hour, and then I took it out, lined it into my little pie pan, and then I really thinly sliced Fuji apples, and I think you used like 3 of them. Well, before I lined the pie pan with the apples, and I showed this in the video too, I just kind of rubbed some butter all around it. And then I put the apples in, really the thin slices of them, and lined them up. and then put some chunks of butter on like it called for, and then a bunch of like sugar. I think it was like a 1/4 cup that I sprinkled on top. And I was not able to get videos of the tart just because I cooked it at my grandma's house down the road because our main dish was cooking in our oven at home. But anyway, I do have pictures of that, and that I believe I just put in before this, or it'll be right after. But those are really the only 2 things that had a lot of steps in preparation. But the salad I just kind of threw together. The bread and cheese is pretty self-explanatory. I guess the artichoke dip, which I found from that French cookbook online that was published in, I'm trying to find it here, there we go, 1673. And like I had mentioned earlier, it's, even if that cookbook was not available to middle class French cooks in the 1650s, it was basically made to represent the cuisine that was typically eaten by then, or by them. So it probably was a common dish even if people didn't have access to that cookbook and to that specific recipe. But basically I can read the specific description right here. It says, bottom of artichokes. Take off all the leaves and cut them as far as the choke, then seethe them with broth or with water, butter, and salt. After they are sawed, take them out of the broth, pick them, take out the choke, then put them in butter and salt. I just repeated that. And when you will serve, make a sauce of very fresh butter, 1 drop of vinegar. I actually added a little extra vinegar because I personally just thought it needed a little bit more. Nutmeg and the yolk of an egg to thicken the sauce, then serve so that they may be very white. This was a different experience for me because I've never cooked artichoke before. So I looked online and I did it. I bought 2 big artichokes, and the first one I took it out wrong. I took off all the leaves before cooking, and you're supposed to leave them on and then take them off after it's been cooked. So I threw the first one away and then cut off. I looked up how specifically to cook it, just because I wasn't completely sure what this recipe was, so I stuck to it the best I could, especially with the sauce. But cooking it, I got a little bit confused. So I just cut off the tops, the little pointy parts of the artichoke, and then let it, and I showed you this in the video, but I let it sit in boiling water for quite some time, and it was a mixture of my leftover broth from the main dish and then just water, and so that boiled in there for a while, and then we just took it out and dipped it in the dipping sauce, and it was pretty interesting because there were some really different ingredients like the egg yolk and vinegar and nutmeg all together, and I'm kind of an open-minded person, so I thought it was good. My dad wasn't crazy about it, but it was fun to try something new. But I believe that's basically kind of an in-depth look on everything I did, and like I said, I started with the artichokes and that dip, and then moved on to the pear salad, and then I had the main course, which I'm sure I'm saying wrong, but poke avin, the chicken and carrots and onions and garlic, and cooked in red wine and whiskey, and again, that was delicious. And then after that, there was a loaf of bread and a Gouda cheese wheel, and then after that, we finished the whole evening off with an apple tart, and that was delicious. So, thank you, this has been really fun.